Happy New Year. Hey guys. Um, FF15. Yeah. So, most of you already have, at this point, if you haven't played the game, I don't know what to tell you. Spoilers ahead. FF15 came out after Thanksgiving. I didn't get around to playing it till Christmas, but been playing it nonstop. And I absolutely love this game. Now, some of you may remember I made a video a while ago. I had watched the movie Kingsglaive, which sets up part of the story for 15. Those of you who played it, you know that there was a release of 5 episodes directly tied to the game called Brotherhood, which shows you basically who these guys are that you're going to go through the whole game playing with. Your character cast is Noctis, Prince of Insomnia, Prompto, his best friend, Ignis, and Gladiolus, who had been assigned to care for and protect Noctis since he was a kid. So here's my assessment. I love the game, but it reminds me a lot of 8 in that you definitely could have had multiple games off of this story because they focus essentially 2 different storylines, but really it's more like 3 or 4. You have the concept from Kingsglaive, which is kind of more of the political story, directly relating to the Kingdom of Insomnia and really the Kingdom of Lucia versus the Empire, because that's essentially what's going on in Kingsglaive is the Empire betrays the Kingdom of Lucius. They basically stage this huge setup to assassinate the king and steal the crystal. Bam. Insomnia falls. So you get this idea that the game is going to be about what's going to happen to the Empire because they did this. But no, that's not what the game is about at all. And then from Brotherhood, it's obvious Brotherhood is just sort of setting up your character cast. So you can't really get mad at Brotherhood for anything. But then we get into the game, and the game is more about the perspective of the experience of these 4 guys in going about basically this adventure. I can't say that it's directly them trying to exact revenge because yes and no. Noctis clearly wants to get revenge for the death of his father and the fall of Insomnia, but it's more personal for him because of what happens with Lunafreya, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but you know, if you played it, you know what it is. If you didn't, cover your ears right now, mute me, whatever it is. Yeah, because you know the Empire kills Lunafreya. Oh, okay, you can unmute. You can listen now. You're good. Okay. So essentially for Noctis, it's way more personal, and he carries that through the rest of the game. That this is very, very personal for him, specifically because of Lunafreya. So you kind of lose the political momentum for what Kingsglaive set up. But then here comes this other storyline that comes into play, which is what the Empire had been doing all this time. You still don't really get a sense of why the crystal was stolen until the end of the game. And even then, it doesn't have anything to do with the Empire, which was kind of a cool twist in a sense that this was way more personal than what we thought as a pretense. But basically the Empire has been experimenting on their own people and anybody solely to make their Magitech demon army. Okay, that's a insidious plot hole, very reminiscent of FF7, Dr. Hojo, and experimenting on people just to see if you can. And you learn at the end of the game, you know, Prompto was basically a victim of this type of experimentation. He was born into it. He didn't even know. But he knew, but he didn't want to tell anybody because, you know, he didn't want anyone to know he was born an Imperial soldier slave thing. Then they don't get into that at all, which is kind of sad because that would have been a really cool storyline. So, and then of course you have this massive plot gap with the character Ravis. Ravis being the brother of Lunafreya. And when we meet Ravis for the first time is in Kingsglaive, and he's very clearly, definitely a bad guy. He is an absolute villain in Kingsglaive. So you're expecting to see this major situation with Ravis in the game, and that never happens. You're just like, no explanation of Ravis except this minor kind of, I hate to say it, but a cut and paste kind of statement of, oh, by the way, you know, we're not going to mention anything he did in Kingsglaive in the game. We're just going to say, hey, he really wanted to help his sister, and she made him promise to hand over the sword, so you were going to do anything to make sure that Noctis got the sword. Then he's tried for treason in the Empire. What? Then he's targeted for execution by the Emperor. What? When you find him, he's laying dying. You get your sword. And then next thing you know, here comes zombie Ravis begging us to kill him as he whoops your ass. And it's like, what? When did the turnaround happen for Ravis? When was the epiphany moment? And it had to happen before Noctis gets to Altissia, or at least I think it had to happen either right before he gets to Altissia or when he got to Altissia. But it happened around about the Altissia moment, where Ravis realizes, and this is just my theory, Ravis realizes that, you know, the Empire is not what he thought it was going to be, and he realizes who the real enemy is. So he's now realigned himself with his sister and tries his best to, I guess, help Noctis, even though he doesn't do anything to help Noctis. Hell, the mercenary Highwind does way more to help Noctis on a regular basis. Homegirl is there. She is the MVP of the game. I'm just playing that. She's not, but she shows up pretty frequently, at least on my file. She shows up all the time, but I'm always running around at night. But anyway, so you've got these storylines, and it's so meaty, and it's so good, and you really, really, really want to know, and the game doesn't really do anything other than just sort of happenstance mention it, which is kind of sad, but you know why. At least, you know, diehard fans know why. We know because there was a big dispute during the production of the game. They switched who was producing, they switched who was directing, they switched who was writing, and you feel that. You feel that in the story as it's going. So, you know, sidebar as a comparison, it's kind of like if you were watching, you know, the new Battlestar Galactica series that was released a couple years ago, and then there was the writer's strike. You knew in that season when the new writers came in because the story was pretty weak. And the, you know, it was a short season. It was a pretty weak season. And then the writer's strike ended, and here come the original writers back, and you're like, oh yeah, you saved it. But, you know, at that point, they'd already kind of wrapped up most of the story, and we had this huge hanging plot story that was Starbuck that they never wrapped up. So, you know, that's Starbuck is to Battlestar what Ravis is to FF, if you get what I'm saying. So I heard through the grapevine that there's supposed to be some DLC content for 15. I really, really hope this is true. I really hope they, you know, kind of sew up the Ravis storyline, because that'd be great. I mean, here's this character, you make a big deal about him, especially in Kingsglaive, and I mean, homie is just like the biggest traitor ever. And then he has this heroic turnaround moment, and a really sad, you know, final solution. So I'd like to see them tie that up. I'd like to see them explain more about what the Empire was really, really, really trying to do. I'd like to see them explain more about the virus they created. That how did it get released into the city? How did it spread so quickly? How did the Empire keep this under wraps for so long? Like, no one knew that there were disappearances. And the only hint you get to it after the fact, if you think about it, is when you're in Altissia, you're able to do the mercenary jobs, but you're in the city. And, you know, every so often there's a question, you know, why is this happening in the city? And that's really the only moment that sort of ties the whole spread of this plague and people disappearing and turning into demons into the main story. That's the only moment it happens. And when you get to Garlea and you find the notes, if you read the notes, you learn that, you know, the Empire knew shit was falling apart, and they were panicking, trying to contain it, and they couldn't contain it. And you essentially have to just kind of believe that the entire city, the entire imperial capital, is overrun with demons. There's no human left alive. You just have to assume that. But I really enjoyed the game. I highly, highly recommend, if you haven't played it, do yourself a favor, watch Kingsglaive, then watch Brotherhood, then start the game and enjoy yourself. Do everything, explore everything. It's great fun. Good job, Square Enix. Y'all always get my money. But please, I hope if you guys hear anything through the grapevine about DLC content for the game, let me know, drop it in the comments. I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Peace out.